Watch this video to discover the 3 easiest and best ways to make bag straps. If you find this video helpful, please like and subscribe.
The first thing we need to do when we're making a bag strap is to apply some interfacing on the underside of the fabric. This is going to give the fabric a little bit more depth and rigidity, and it's going to make the strap fold and stitch more easily. So we're going to add a piece which is the same size as the cut strap. And because I'm using it an iron-on interfacing, I'm going to actually press it on from the right side of the fabric, because interfacing quite often, especially if it's non-woven, will actually stick to the bottom of the iron, and we don't want that. So I'm just applying it with a bit of heat, and you can lightly touch it up with the iron if you want to in there, but just don't leave the iron on it for too long. So we're going to fold this piece of fabric into 4. Now, to find the center of our strip of fabric, we're going to have to fold our strip widthways and make a crease down the middle. So raw edge to raw edge, and with the iron just lets us make a light crease down the length of the strap. These are going to be for bag handles or tote handles. So with that crease, we're now going to fold one edge to the middle of the fabric, using the crease line as our line to line up our raw edge to. So press that all the way along. And then fold our remaining side into the middle so they're just touching in the center. So where they're touching will be over that crease line. It's important that that crease line is in the middle of our fabric, because when we fold this over, we want those two folded edges to sit on top of each other. We can't have one width and the other another width, otherwise they won't stitch together in the end. So there we have it. We're going to go to the machine and stitch both those edges. So we're going to stitch the folded edges together and then that creased edge. Having the fabric all the way to the crease means that there is no uneven bulk in the strap. So I'm just using a straight stitching foot. I've lengthened my stitch a little bit, so it's 3.5, and I'm just going to edge stitch those two folded edges together. By all means pin or use quilt clips, but I find that with the interfacing, this sits quite well by itself and it doesn't move. You could use an edge stitching foot or a top stitching foot, or even a walking foot. So we're not top stitching, we're edge stitching. We are stitching on the edge, 1/8 of an inch in from the edge. Now my thread looks a little bit thicker because I've actually got 2 threads going through the needle. I've actually got 2 reels of thread going through the needle so I can get the right colour. Now, I'm using my fingers as a guide so as I can just stitch that along the edge without having to shift my hands. Makes it faster, neater and straighter. That's the single side. See how the double side is a little bit thicker, the stitching? Very easy, very neat, and ready to go onto a tote or a handbag. Our second strap consists of 2 different pieces of fabric, And that different fabric allows us to introduce a secondary or a tertiary colour into our project. One side of the fabric is a little bit wider than the other, so the contrast which is being stitched on the top will blend in and give some interest to this handbag or tote strap. We need to cut our two bits of fabric, our two strips of fabric for this, so as there's 1/2 inch or 1.25 centimetres width in difference. So when they sit on, there's about 1/2 inch difference. So when they're folded to the centre, that means that they will have about 1/8 of an inch sticking out either side of the contrasting fabric for our point of interest. There we are, there's our 1/8 of an inch, and it's just top stitched into place. It's important that that fabric is actually centralised down the strip. So I've interfaced these already, and I've also joined my interfacing. I've just done a little bit of an overlap there. No sense in wasting interfacing, and it's not going to show because it's not all that heavy. We're going to press, like we did for our first strap, we're going to press a crease down the middle, and we're going to press to the centre. Press the other side to the centre. I like to just turn that over and give it a shot of steam from the right side. That just keeps it nice and flat. And we're going to do the same for our contrast. Just a light crease along the edge. Now this is actually a linen-like fabric. It's got quite an obvious weave to it. So that crease is quite visible to see, but it's also a little bit hard to get out. So I'm going to show you a little trick about getting that crease out. Again, meeting those two raw edges in the middle. These folds will create the finished width of these two straps. Now, even giving that a press, you can still see that creases there. So I'm just going to get a little bit of spray. Now, I'm using Best Press, but you can use water. It doesn't matter. You just want to add some moisture to it from the right side, and then we will just press that out, and that crease just goes away. So one piece sits on top of the other with the two seams, raw seams, sitting against each other. So we're just going to stitch that contrast piece onto that base piece. Okay, it's important that it's in the centre. There's a way of doing that, which is quite easy. We're going to spray baste it. You can pin, you can use quilt clips, but I'm going to spray baste it. Now we put the spray baste on the contrast piece, which is going to sit on the top of the strap. Just a light douse. And I'm working on a surface that's not going to come in contact with fabric, of course. And then centralize it. One thing about 505 spray, which I'm using, is it's repositionable. So if it's not quite in the center, you can pick it up and put it on again, and it will still stick. Now, we're just going to be edge stitching. Again, using an edge stitching foot, a little bit longer stitch. I've got a contrast thread on the back, so as it matches that fabric, with a matching thread on the top. So it's two different thread colours. You don't have to, it's just my choice today. And I'm just going to edge stitch this on. And like I did with the other strap, I've got two strips, two different threads coming through the needle at the same time. And see, I'm just picking that up and repositioning it because it wasn't quite in the center. The beauty of 505. You don't want to saturate fabric with spray adhesive. It's just a light dusting. This runs through so easily using a straight stitching foot. But you could use a edge stitching foot or a walking foot, even an open toe foot with the needle all the way over to one side. As long as it stays on the edge of that top contrasting fabric, you'll get straight stitching. You could use a decorative stitch. Up to you. There we go. So there we have a pair of bag handles. For this third strap, we're going to be using a little bit of batting inside the strap instead of using a stabilizer. This is an iron-on pellon, which you could use normal craft batting like we use in our projects and just spray baste it into position. It doesn't have to be iron-on. This one was just handy, and a lot of people do use it for straps because it's actually quite easy to use. It's got a little bit of loft, but it's not got too much loft, but you are going to be folding the strap onto itself. So it just gives you a little bit of sponginess, and what it does is that for a backpack or a heavier bag, it's just a little bit more comfortable on the shoulders, especially if you make the strap a little bit wider. Some people like to actually put even a second piece of the pellon down the middle of the strap of what we're folding over now, so as that it gives it even more loft. But for this instance, I'm just going to be folding it in like we did with the other one, with our strap 2, which is our contrast. You see when on the fold is slightly elevated and thicker, and that's just going to give you a little bit more comfort either on the hand or comfort on the shoulder if you're using it as a backpack or a heavier tote. Just give that a little iron again. And again, that will go on top of there. We're going to spray base that on. But let's go to the iron and let's see the difference between the two straps. Oh, sorry, let's go to the machine. So you can see that edge is thicker in comparison. See, it's thicker. And so when it's stitched on, it will look like a little bit of a piped edge, but it's not piped. You actually can put a little piece of rope piping in that edge if you wish. But it's not tricky, but you just need to get it in position before you start stitching. But I really think that this batting inside the first or the wider strap is sufficient to give you enough loft to make the strap a little more comfortable. It's just an option. And we're edge stitching again, longer stitch, straight stitch foot. Now you can see its thickness. It's just twice as thick, maybe 3 times as thick as the normal strap. See, that is quite flat. And the other one we've just created has got a bit more loft to it. And when we turn them over, that one's spongy and that one is not. Another option for you.